Welcome back to the Daily Dope. I'm your friendly host and commentator, Brandon Strong. And today we are going to celebrate a small victory, as the lawyer of the case will explain later on. There was 4 different possibilities that could have came out of the case against Jeff Sessions, and that would be this case here, where you have this 12-year-old girl bringing a lawsuit against Jeff Sessions so that she could have the right to travel freely about the country. This is a lawsuit that's challenging the constitutionality of cannabis in the Controlled Substances Act as designated as a Schedule I substance. The lawyer Michael Hiller will argue that the original case where cannabis was induced into the Schedule I designation, and that the case that found that to be constitutional, that is up for review, basically, because you can't enforce a ruling like that 40 years down the road if there's new facts to present. And this, if you watch this whole video, you'll see all of this, because basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you the update real quick, and it's going to be fast. I don't really have any commentary. This is awesome news, and you can't be any more happy about the outcome of today's situation. It could have went one step better. The judge could have just immediately gaveled down and said, yes, I agree, this, and I'm going to give you your statement that I feel it's unconstitutional. But he did a pretty good number. All right, we'll say that. So yeah, if you haven't been paying attention to my channel or this story, there's some people suing Jeff Sessions, and if you really think that there's a chance that this might do something, what it does do is it forces the government to react to it, and this has to go up to the next thing. There's just no other way around it. I don't see how the argument against this would win, but you can make your mind up for yourself on this. Like I said, I'm gonna read these articles, and then I'm gonna play the video of this press briefing right here. After the court proceedings, the press briefing consisted of Mr. Hiller kind of opening, and then the plaintiffs that were available to speak got out and spoke, and then Mr. Hiller came back for a Q&A. And by the time you watch all of those clips, which by the way are compliments of DC 420 LA, thanks again DC, after you watch all this, you should be up to date with everything going on in this case. I've been covering this since it broke out, basically, and yep, 100% I stand with Alexis and everybody else involved in this lawsuit. We have Marvin Washington, Jose Bellin, and of course Jaeger Coat, another epileptic patient, and Cannabis Culture Association. And you're going to hear from all these different plaintiffs after this little update. So the latest on the lawsuit challenging federal marijuana laws, and this is from ABC News and by the Associated Press. The judge hearing the lawsuit challenging federal marijuana laws has indicated that he is sympathetic to some patients who use cannabis to treat medical conditions. On Wednesday, Judge Alvin Hellerstein in New York addressed an attorney for plaintiffs who want to see the law changed. The judge asked how anyone could say that the plaintiffs' lives have not been saved by marijuana. That's a pretty profound statement by the judge. The lawsuit claims that the government's decision to classify marijuana as a dangerous is irrational, unconstitutional, and motivated by politics. The federal government says people who want to change federal drug laws should petition the Drug Enforcement Administration rather than filing a lawsuit. Well, let me just say this, federal government. You said that. We went to the DEA, and they said no. That was back in 2016. That's when I made my first video on this channel, by the way. Right after the DEA said, no, we're not going to reschedule it, I made a video, and since then, we've been going around in circles. Jeff Sessions tells you that you have to go to your Congress and have them change the laws. Well, we tried that, and then you had Pete Sessions there blocking us. Pete Sessions says, oh, no, I'm not even going to look at any evidence or anything. I'm just going to scapegoat a bunch of heroin addicts and say they started with weed. This is disingenuous. This statement by the federal government is a slap in the face to all these patients suffering needlessly. And this is a human rights situation at this point in time. The discrimination continuing. When you make statements like this, federal government, when you send us on a wild goose chase in a circular fashion and say, oh, you got to go to the DEA to change this. Oh, they'll tell us we got to go to Congress. Congress will tell us we got to go petition the FDA and go the proper channels. And it's just a big runaround. So no, we don't like your advice. And when you say stuff like that, after we've been pointing out how racist the drug war and the marijuana enforcement has been throughout the last 40 or more, maybe 80 years or more, when we point that out and you say stuff like this, that just makes you look like a racist. It's systematic. This is systemic racism, and it makes you look like you're for that, is what that does. Hellerstein said he will rule at a future date, and that's pretty encouraging. Also, the government has filed a motion to dismiss. That's what this whole thing's about. The judge could have just been like, you know what? Let's just dismiss this. Government lawyers say there are logical reasons for listing marijuana as a dangerous drug under federal law. Oh, really? I can't wait to hear them, because I've been looking for those. I've been wondering about that pretty much my whole life. Where are they? Hoping to find some cancer in the discussion area, and oh, okay. I don't know what this is all about. So anyway, another article we're going to look at real quick from Marijuana Business Daily. After a roughly three-hour hearing in New York on Valentine's Day, the plaintiffs in a lawsuit attempting to legalize marijuana on a national scale in the United States will have to be patient as they wait to hear if their case will be moving forward. U.S. District Court Judge Alvin Hellerstein is expected to decide in the coming weeks whether to grant a motion by the U.S. government to dismiss the case. The lawsuit argues that the Controlled Substances Act of 1970 is unconstitutional and asks that marijuana be removed from the schedule of controlled narcotics. The lawsuit was filed in July by a coalition of plaintiffs who range from a retired NFL player to a young epileptic girl. The judge, quote, said on record that he has a difficult decision to make, but we're optimistic, noted Lauren Ruddick, an attorney for the plaintiffs. Ruddick attributed her optimism in part to the fact that the judge, quote, made a finding of fact that there really can be no legitimate debate with respect to medical efficacy of cannabis when it comes to several of the plaintiffs. Quote, this is a judge that recognizes that cannabis is medicine and that was really important, Ruddick said. I'm not sure if that's ever happened in a federal court. Well, we know that there was things like the mentioned before, several times that the federal government had the opportunity to look at real studies that the government did and say, okay, we agree, marijuana is good to go, it's medicine, it's safe, and all this other stuff, but they refused to do it. So there's got to be some kind of ulterior motive, clearly, for them to keep cannabis on Schedule 1. And if you're going to say that that's all good and that's all fine and dandy or whatever, then we're going to say that we're going to take you to the next level until we break you. And we have the facts, we have the science and all that. So the federal government is basically going to start running scared. And this is where it begins right here. I'm not saying that this judge is going to come back and slam the gavel down and be like, yes, get it out of schedule. But this might be the step that you take, and you've convinced this judge that it's unconstitutional. The Supreme Court's going to have to take another look at it. It's kind of like when a car company makes a car that kills people because of something that's wrong with it, and they have to do a recall. It's time to recall your law. This cannabis being on Schedule 1, it defies everything there is about critical thinking, intelligence, you name it. It's just complete ignorance of everything that's right before your eyes. I mean, Alexis Bortel is seizure-free because of cannabis. What do you want, Jeff Sessions? Do you want this girl to never be able to go visit her friends back in Texas, where she had to move to Colorado from to get away from Texas's arcane system that they had at the time? Is that what your goal is, Mr. Sessions? You goofy old weirdo. Why? Why do you want Jose Bellin? Why do you want this guy right here to suffer? This guy had basically, like, he's one of the statistics that didn't kill himself. And why didn't he? It wasn't because of the drugs they were giving him over at the VA, I guarantee that. Alright, so now I'm just going to go ahead and go. And I don't have any commentary to add to what these plaintiffs and the lawyers are going to say. So thank you for sticking around and checking it out. And thank you, DC 420 LA, for sharing this video. And link will be in the description for that video. And congratulations, everybody that participated in this event today on Valentine's Day of 2018. And that's it.
For those of you who are not inside the courtroom, the court considered the government's motion to dismiss today. As far as the plaintiffs are concerned, as far as the families who are most impacted by this case, we are thrilled that we have a judge in this case who has taken the time to focus on the issues, to ask probing questions, and has demonstrated a commitment to get the answer to this question right. And from our perspective, we know the right answer already. That's why we brought the case. And we are confident that we're going to have an outcome here which generates the result that we've all been waiting for over 48 years. And that is that the Controlled Substances Act, as it pertains to the classification of cannabis, will be declared unconstitutional. We hope it will be with this court. We are certainly heartened by the manner in which the judge focused on the issues. We obviously can't predict what the outcome will be, but one thing we're certain of is that whatever the outcome, the judge will spend time to get it right. And we are genuinely hopeful that he will get it right from our perspective, and that we're going to get an outcome that, like I said, liberates the people who, for the last 48 years, have been suffering from real oppression, not being able to get the medicines that they need. And these stories have been repeated to us every day since we brought this lawsuit. Beginning on July 24th when we filed, right up to yesterday, we're getting calls every day, calls, text messages. I got a call from a guy from Texas with multiple sclerosis at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday night. These people need their medications. And the fact of the matter is, whether it's resolved here as it should be, or if by some miracle Congress steps up to the plate and resolves it for us, one thing is for certain is that we have to keep fighting until the people who desperately need the medications that are saving and preserving their lives can continue to do so without government interference.
My name is Lauren Krudik. I'm also a partner at Hellerstein. I do want to thank everyone for being here. It's remarkable. The outpouring of love and support is real. This is perhaps one of the most real issues that is rooted in rationality, in logic, and what's actually happening today. We live in a government that for some reason has failed to recognize the medical efficacy of cannabis, but our judge gets it. And that was really important today. You know, our judge looked at the families of the Bortels and Jagger's family and Jose Bellin and said to them that there can't be a legitimate debate with respect to how cannabis is helping them. And that is truly remarkable. And we have a lot to be proud of. And we can't forget that this is truly a human rights issue, and it's so obvious by all of the humans that showed up today. So thank you. This is far from over. We can't wait for what's next, and we look forward to it.
You know me, I'm Joe Bond, and
You have to speak up to the people.
Yes.
let me speak up. This is the very beginning.
It's not amplified.
It's not amplified. All right, I'll speak up then. Because the bottom line, look at everybody who's here. We have people who are in wheelchairs who are here, right? We have the elderly who are here. We have young people who are here. We have people from all denominations, all ethnicities, all backgrounds who came to this court in pursuit of one thing, which is justice. And justice, we shall pursue, right? It's not going to end. I mean, when we think about all of the people, and we know what the truth is, everyone here knows what the truth is about the way the Controlled Substances Act is enforced. We know the truth about the way it was enacted, and we're going to continue to push that message. We're going to push the medical message. We're going to push the constitutional message. We're going to push the message of fairness to all people so that nobody is denied a right to participate in our society because of a marijuana conviction. Are you with me? Yeah! Let's hear it again louder. With me. Celebration for us, Ash Wednesday, Valentine's Day, a big celebration, and thank you all for coming on down.
Thank you,
I'm David Collins, and I'm a member of the legal team here, and I'm the head of Empire State Normal as well as a member of the New York Cannabis Bar Association. I've been doing this for about 25 years, and I have been started back 25 years ago where you have conversations about marijuana with criminal defendants in hushed back rooms, moving into boardrooms, but never has the conversation moved like it has with these beautiful plaintiffs and this legal team that we put together today. You all, the media, are the most important thing we have because we can't carry the day necessarily with a judge that feels constrained by what the law may keep him from doing, which is declaring this unconstitutional. He knows it is, but he may not be able to do it. We need you all to keep the fight alive because at the end, must we go the other route? We need the human drama, the human story continue to be told so that your congressmen and your representatives will finally take the daring stance like 31 other states have done to finally say we should have a legalized program and this should not be a priority law enforcement measure. So thank you all, and thank you for the members of the legal team, and thank you all the plaintiffs. Without you, we could never have this battle.
Yes! My name is Nelson Guerrero. I'm one of the co-founders and the executive director of the Cannabis Cultural Association. We're one of the plaintiffs here. We're a 501c3 nonprofit based here in New York with the mission to end the disparity in law enforcement as it pertains to cannabis and communities of color, as well as educating our communities and creating an equal and equitable industry with regards to cannabis. And I'm here along with my co-founder.
My name is Jake Plowden. I am a co-founder and the deputy director of CCA. And we've understood now that the war on drugs didn't work because we're all here together today. And we're here to end the drug war for what it is: racist, criminal, and harmful. Yeah. We're here to stand up for veterans, children, families, together. Yes. Yeah. If we expect this, if we expect the injustice to end, we have to stand together, we have to grow together.
The Cannabis Cultural Association believes and knows that all cultures use cannabis.
Yes.
It's only been in the last 80 years they've taken this away from us.
Yes.
And we're here fighting today with everybody, for all our members of the community, for everybody to legalize this plant, to free the people and free the plant.
Yes.
Hello everyone, my name is Jose Bellin. I am a United States Army combat veteran. I am here on behalf of every veteran who has been wronged from generations past, present, and future. I'm also the founder and CEO of Florida Mission Zero, a nonprofit organization dedicated to ending veteran suicide. At the end of the day, our human rights are being violated. We need to overcome. The oppression needs to stop. We're losing 22 veterans a day. That's over 8,000 veterans a year. Every 90 minutes as we stand here, there's a veteran in America committing suicide. That is not okay. Okay? The reason we're here today in unison is for peace. Okay? We're one people As Mahatma Gandhi said, you must be the change you wish to see in the world. Well, this is what it looks like, everyone. So thank you again. God bless all of you, and God bless this country.
Yes. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Leo Bridgewater. I am the New York and New Jersey chapter president for Minorities for Medical Marijuana. I am also co-founder of the New Jersey Cannabis Commission and member of Cannabis Culture Association. We are at 22 veteran suicides a day. Now, my experience is teaching me that the general public, with today's current racial and political climate, tends to lean more towards the word of a veteran before a politician. And the reason being is because you all know we're going to tell it. And so what I'm here to tell you today is that the dawn of a new era of politics has begun. The time for oxymoronic politics is over. And so with that being said, I charge you all now to go back home and have this conversation, not just at your dinner table, but with your neighbors, with the folks around the corner, at church. Because where we are right now is we're at a point where it is required that everyone become educated. Education, education, education. We still have people saying words like gateway drug. That's where we are today. So that being said, I'm going to leave you all with just one last message. And that is, like Jake and Nelson said, we are cannabis culture, and we are moving towards a new day in politics. Thank you all.
Advocacy on behalf of his daughter.
Look, I want to thank everyone coming out today. I've got a little different message. I want to talk to the parents out there. I'm no one to take a moral authority on any parents out there, but I will say that dealing with Alexis, I haven't talked to her yet. This is good. It's a first step. She's certainly watching it. She's looking forward to being able to actually come to these in person, and we're hoping we can do that. But we're being very respectful. We understand the intricacies, and for the parents out there looking at their children, I want to say this, because I know not all of them are with us because they don't understand what's going on here. It's not, once they understand the issue, most of the time they come around. But I would ask the parents out there tonight to just sit down with their kids, talk to them about what's going on, and try to explain to them, and even among mothers and fathers, about what's really happening here. We're not talking about a plan. We kind of get tied up in it, I think, as a parent. But when we look at our children, the dreams of a parent are that our children go to beyond more than we could ever do, right? And we tell our children there's no boogeyman, there's no monsters in the closet, and there's no limit to what you can do in America. But for children like my daughter, Alexis, it's a lie. So parents are out there every day and we're lying to our children because there is a ceiling. And it's not made of glass, it's made of concrete. But it has latches. With their help, we can take it off, and these kids can be real Americans. I mean, we're sitting here talking about American rights and families and all of this stuff. What is my daughter? What are all the other children? We're raising an entire generation of Americans who don't trust authority, who live where everything's backwards. My daughter told me the other day, if something happened, I don't know if I'd call the police. Right? She doesn't want to be like that. We have family members who've been law enforcement, things like that. We love them. So I'm just saying that when you talk to your children, please try to make them understand that it's complicated. There's doctors involved. These are not issues that we can just set back and just wait for it to happen. It's going to be really a long time. You may have a good day, a bad day, but just, you know, parents sit down, talk to each other, try to understand that our real goal here is just to remove the ceiling, let these kids take off and do what they got to do. And hopefully at the end of the day we're able to do that. I think we will be able to. I think today was great. I think it could have been perfect, but hey, you know, that's the way it goes. We're making progress. I was in the military. My wife and I are both veterans, and we're used to going slow. So we'll get there. Just tell your kids you love them, give them a great big hug, and remember that if we stick to this together, if we just stay the course, we're going to get through it. And the kids are growing up seeing this hypocrisy. It's going to take care of itself if we don't get it done, but we're gonna get it.
Sebastian Kahn. Thank you everybody for being here. I hope you guys can hear me. My name is Sebastian Kahn. I am Jago's dad. And I'm just gonna make it very simple. Just like Michael said before, Jago should not be alive today. He's only alive today because of medical cannabis. We had to jump through unbelievable hoops for that to happen. We had to move to Colorado for 13 months, become medical refugees, just to keep my kid alive, our kid alive. This should not happen in America in 2018. And, you know, this is what we're trying to do today. We're trying to make sure that people don't have to do this. People don't have to take risk to be able to give medical cannabis to their kid when it's what helping them or saving their life. It should be easy. It should be simple. It should be something available to everybody regardless of your zip code. You should not depend on your zip code if you can have access or not. And hopefully this is what we can achieve today. I think the judge made it very clear that he agree and understand that cannabis is helping Alexis and Jagger and so many other people. And we're going to keep fighting because we have to make this happen for everybody and for the patients. So we're on it for the long run, and thank you very much.
Yeah.
So that he would take it under advisement. He could have automatically dismissed, right?
There were basically 4 options today. One, he could have dismissed it today. Another possibility is he could have denied the motion today. The third possibility is he could have granted it in part and denied it in part. And the last possibility, which is what actually happened, is the judge reserved decision, which means he's going to consider the issues over the next several days or weeks until he comes to a conclusion, and then the decision will be published. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Steve Wishnier from Freedom Leaf. So basically it seems that the argument the judge considered strongest was the one that you can't say there's a rational basis for there being no accepted medical use, but the issue of law is whether he can use that to either decide the case should proceed, or say he can't do it because of the administrative remedy.
I would say that's a fair representation of what we heard today. I think there's really no question, though, that we heard something super important that, as far as I'm aware, very few judges have commented openly on until today, and that is the judge made absolutely clear that cannabis does not meet one of the 3 requirements for scheduling as a Schedule I drug, and that is that the government cannot show, and shouldn't even bother trying to show, that there's no medical benefit to cannabis. He essentially told the government today to stop making that argument. There's no point to it. And you know what? Thank goodness, because it's so true. I mean, there are people all over the country today who are alive because of medical cannabis. And the crazy thing about this is, and most people don't know this, is that the United States government, in addition to having a patent on a strain of medical cannabis, and in addition to having distributed cannabis for the last 42 years pursuant to the Investigational New Drug Program, despite all that, in addition, the Department of Treasury today, and has been since 2014, has issued something called the FinCEN guidance, pursuant to which the federal government has been giving advice to banks and other federally regulated institutions on how to do business with cannabis companies. If cannabis has no medical benefits whatsoever and is so dangerous that it can't be tested even under strict medical supervision, why is the United States government giving advice to banks and lenders on how to do business with cannabis companies? Frankly, if you think about it for a second, the federal government is actually aiding and abetting a violation of the Controlled Substances Act. And I'll tell you something. What that shows us is that the federal government knows that cannabis doesn't meet the 3 requirements for a Schedule I drug. They know it. And that's why they've allowed 30 state legal programs with over 200 million Americans across the country having access to cannabis on a daily basis. It was so dangerous that you couldn't even test it safely. The United States government wouldn't let 30 programs exist across the country, and that's exactly what's happening. So there is a ton of evidence to support our position in this case, and as I said, when the court has the opportunity to review that evidence, we are very hopeful that the judge is going to reach the same conclusion, that he can do something about this, and that he can declare the statute unconstitutional. Yes, sir.
2 questions. Do you have any sense of timeline from the judge of when he could make a decision, and how do you define a win? What does a win look like for you guys in this case?
A win? A win could look like a lot of things, but from our perspective, a win is that the Controlled Substances Act is declared unconstitutional as it pertains to the classification of cannabis. How that happens, I really don't care, to be honest with you. If Congress passes legislation to decriminalize and deschedule cannabis, great. If the district court here issues a ruling that declares cannabis, that states that the classification of cannabis is unconstitutional, fantastic. I don't care how it happens, but I think it's imperative that it does happen. Did I say that again?
Timeline? Did he give any?
Oh, in terms of a timeline, there's really just no way for us to guess on that. One thing that's true, Lauren just pointed out that at our very first hearing in this case, the judge did make very clear that this case is going to be among the highest priorities of all the cases on his docket because it has a priority. We filed a motion for a preliminary injunction, and that is going to be combined with the trial in this case, assuming that we survive, as I believe we will.
Andrew Ramos, Mixed 11 News. As far as a lot of good stuff came out from this hearing. Could you talk about your confidence right now moving forward?
You know, we're charged. We feel great. First of all, you know, without sounding too cliche, there's a lot of love in the room here. We feel the support of Americans throughout the country. I can't tell you how many emails, texts, and posts that I received over the last 24 hours. People sending me emails saying, we're praying for you, we're hoping for you, we believe in your case, we can't wait to get to the outcome, we can't wait till this case is over. It's a wonderful feeling to know that not only are we in a very interesting legal case, but we are on the right side of it. And from our perspective, that gives us the most confidence of all, because the bottom line from our perspective is if we're on the right side of the legal issue, we're fighting for it, we know we're doing the right thing. And I can't tell you, as a lawyer, that's what you live for. That's what you want. You want to be in the fight of your life, doing the right thing for as many people as you can help as possible. And that's where we are right now. The name of the case is Kiffer. It's a 1973 case which was issued relatively shortly after the Controlled Substances Act was enacted. And the thing about Kiffer was, at that time, the court in Kiffer believed, that the Controlled Substances Act had just been enacted, hadn't been a lot of disclosure in terms of what the circumstances were, in terms of how the Controlled Substances Act was initially enacted. There was a body of history that had not yet been developed. So at the time Kiffer was decided, when the court said that that the Controlled Substances Act, as it pertains to cannabis, was constitutional, at that time the investigation into the drug program had not yet started, and so the United States government wasn't distributing cannabis all over the country. The Schaefer Commission, which was appointed by President Nixon, the Schaefer Commission came out and afterwards and announced that the cannabis is safe, medically effective, and should be decriminalized. That was after Kiffer as well. In 1988, something we didn't talk about today, an administrative law judge named Francis Young issued a 60-page decision deconstructing to the very last granular detail just how absurd the classification of cannabis is as a Schedule I drug. That wasn't in existence in 1973. In 1996, we had the first state legal cannabis program in California. That was followed by another 29 states and 9, almost 10 now, recreational adult use programs. That wasn't in existence at the time. The United States patent in 2002 didn't exist at the time. The world has changed. So when they talk about Kiffer, a 1973 case, and when they're talking about that kind of circumstance, you really don't know the rest of the history. And as I said earlier, one of the ways that we are trying to prove that the Controlled Substances Act violates the Constitution is that it's irrational. The classification makes no sense. And the facts that I just recited to you could not have been known at the time that Kiffer was decided. So that's why we think that Kiffer should not be followed. And there is a well-established body of case law that when the facts change, the courts have to change too. If the courts can't continue to decide cases based upon facts in the past. If that were the case, if you only decided the case law based upon what people thought years before, we would never have Brown versus Board of Education. We would never have Lawrence versus Texas. We would never have Oberfeld. We would never have Windsor. We wouldn't have marriage equality. The whole point is, as time changes, as time elapses, and as the circumstances change and we evolve, we have to adjust to those facts. And we now know that the Controlled Substances Act is completely and totally irrational. And I'll add one last point to this, something else they did not know in 1973, but which we know today. We know that the Controlled Substances Act was a subterfuge for oppression of African Americans and the suppression of political rights. We know that because John Ehrlichman, former White House Chief of Staff and White House counselor, said that. H.R. Haldeman said it in his diary. Roger Stone, who's still around today, has submitted an affidavit in this case. Yeah. He says he spoke to Miles Ambrose, the first drug czar of the United States, following the Controlled Substances Act enactment, and he said that Miles Ambrose admitted it, that the whole purpose of the Controlled Substances Act was to suppress and oppress people, to deprive them of their civil rights, because from Nixon's perspective, all these people were protesting, and they were in his way, and so he was going to find what he considered to be the common thread between them, that they used cannabis. And so he was going to disrupt them, infiltrate their meetings, arrest them, and incarcerate them. And what Joseph Bondi will tell you, because he's a dynamic criminal defense lawyer, and David Holland as well, is that it's been an unbelievably and unfortunately successful program. Persons of color are 4 times as likely to be arrested and incarcerated for a CSA violation. Even though that white Americans and persons of color use cannabis in equal proportions. Why is it that the only place where African Americans are in the lead when it comes to things like this is they're incarcerated at a higher rate than white Americans? It's just not right, and so that needs to change.
Yeah.